Welcome to the Business with Beers podcast. This is the place where we help entrepreneurs expand their business, build their wealth, and generate passive income. I'm your host, Brian Beers, an entrepreneur who's on a mission to inspire growth from everyone around me. Remember that you need to take the actions others won't, and you can live the life that others don't. Please be sure to check out my weekly newsletter that now drops every Thursday. It includes one quote, one tweet, one podcast recommendation, plus some business and investing insight from me. It's short and it's sweet. My goal is to provide you with just a couple gold nuggets to help inspire your growth. Go to brianbeers.com to subscribe. Hello, everyone. I'm excited today to bring you Kase Knochenhauer. In the last 3 years, Kase has built a real estate development company that flips over 60 homes a year. He's acquired 120 rental units and has hit financial freedom. And he says that he focuses on firing himself every day. Must be nice, Kase.
It is. I'm a terrible employee.
That's good. It's good. Most owners are. So, So do you mind, let's start with some color and some backstory. So, bring me back to when you're 18 years old, I don't know, do you go to college or not? And then how do you kind of get on this business and investing journey? And we'll take it from there.
Yeah, when I was 18, I joined the Army, actually. So I've been, currently am in the Army, but I've been in 15 years now. I went to basic training, came back as a musician. So I had a full ride for tuba at Grand Valley and was really sick. So I dropped out, restored boats for 6 months, trying to figure out what to do with my life, and then went back as a geology student. So it took me 7 years to finish school. I did half-time, skipped a couple semesters. Bunch of my friends went into geology, whether it was the government, which means that you made no money and worked with really old technology, but had a reasonable schedule, or you worked in oil and you made great money, but traveled all the time and had the latest tech. And so neither sounded good. So after a few fast job changes, I found myself in real estate. So 2016, I think I started as a real estate agent and sort of transitioned from an individual agent to a team. And then I did my taxes probably 3 years ago, and I made half my money flipping a couple houses, and it took me no time. So we made a huge change, and we really sort of transitioned our business just fully focused on flips. So at this point, we don't even list our own properties anymore.
Okay.
So
you mean you sell your own properties, but you don't sell other people's houses. Only yours.
We don't even list our own flips.
So you don't even sell your own flips.
No.
You're just listing.
Yeah.
You have somebody else take care of it. So you're primarily focused on the acquisition, the
Correct.
construction. Then they handle everything else from there.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay. So how many houses have you flipped total?
I'd say in the range of 250.
Oh, wow. Okay. And where in the country?
Yeah. So I live in Spring Lake, Michigan, just west of Grand Rapids. So our territory, I'd say, is about 90 miles around, maybe an hour and a half around Grand Rapids. So it's basically the third half. It's about a third of the Lower Peninsula, pretty big area.
Okay. All right. And so what does that look like? How do you find your deals? Is it kind of wholesale marketing? Is it kind of outreach, brokers? What does it look like?
Yeah, great question. We do direct to seller, also do agent outreach. So we get a handful of referrals annually. We're really looking at ramping up our agent referral basis. So we spend 6 hours a week calling agents, saying hello, seeing if they have any properties that aren't a good fit to list. So our main goal, sort of 2022, end of 2022 and 2023, is to increase that to probably a third of our business, which is going to be a big push. So I'd like to see 2 deals a month from that. Right now, direct to seller, we do every bit of marketing you can imagine. So a lot of people ask us, what's the best lead source? It always comes down to how much money do you have? How much time do you have? What's your team look like? So we've done everything. I don't think we've not tried anything except newsprint. I've yet to try that yet. But so we turn on and off leads constantly.
So you're doing direct mail, text messaging, bandit ads or whatever. I don't know what they're called. But...
Oh yeah, we don't do bandit signs either. So yeah, there's a guy he walks around with a big pole and a staple, and he sticks the signs way up in the air so people can't pull them down. It's pretty funny in our area. But yeah, we don't do bandit signs. We don't do print. I've tried everything. Bulk text messages, RVMs, PPC, radio. And so what we do is every quarter we go through and we nix our lowest performing. We kind of give it, 6 to 9 months to start performing. But our goal is to use data and actual closings to drive where we're putting our marketing funds.
Okay. And so, I mean, 60 homes a year. I mean, you got what, like 5 projects going on at the same time, roughly, or is it kind of ebb and flow?
It's quite a few. Yes. Our average turn time is about 120 days from acquisition to resale, including the renovation and pending time. So, for instance, right now we have 7 renovations, 9 acquisitions, 10 listings, and 2 in seller possession. So we're typically running somewhere in the range of about 25 projects simultaneously. Right now we're at 25 projects. So we typically are in the range of about 20 to 25 projects at a time.
And talk to me about your team. I mean, because that seems like there's a ton of organization that goes behind all that to have, all the various factors and moving parts. So what does your team look like?
Yeah, so I've got a partner in the business. His name's Tyler. So Tyler joined me 2018, I believe, 2019, when we switched from a real estate service company for traditional sellers to a flip company. He went from an agent to a partner. So if you've read Rocket Fuel, he's my integrator.
Okay.
So he sort of acts as the COO. My goal is to turn him into the full-time manager so I can step back to 5 or 10 hours a week, down from 20, 25. So he's my partner in the business. We've got 3 departments. So at this point in time, Tyler runs our sales department. We have a full-time sales guy on top of Tyler that's local. So he's a salaried and commissioned employee. And then we've got 2 VAs from the Philippines that are running I'd call it CRM management and text management. So because we push so many leads, they're doing the front end. They're acting as Matt's fingers, I'll say. So they're doing the texting. He's doing the conversations.
What about the construction side?
Yeah, the construction side. At this point, I'm our flip manager. So we have, I'd say that takes me about 5 to 10 hours a week at this time. We've got 9 construction crews that vary from a few, probably 100 miles in circumference. And so all 9 of them have between 1 and 3 people per crew. So it looks like about 25 to 30 contractors at any given point that are general handymen. A handful are licensed, others aren't. And then we've got our specialties as well. So we don't have a full-time electrician or plumber or anything. So we still sub that out. We have a roofer that's fairly full-time with us just because we're constantly replacing roofs. It's sort of what the contracting team looks like. I'd say that's a hire, maybe 6 to 18 months from now, we may consider that hire because I think we could do a lot better job managing the crews. And we lose a lot with like credit card acquisition. Sounds weird, but when we spend $1 million a year on products, we get 2% back, and we use our own credit card. We could, that's a lot of points that pay for a whole employee. So looking at somebody for like acquisition, so our contractors don't have it, increase our profitability there. Our other end is our operations department. So I'm sort of the head of operations at this point as well. And we're in the transition of handing that to Colleen, she's my transaction coordinator. She also acts as an assistant to the flip management. So she touches base with contractors and asks for pictures and status of things like that. Inside our operations team, we have Colleen is the transaction coordinator. We have not a full-time, but we have a 1099 agent. So we pay them per deal to sell our houses. And then we have a utility manager and like project manager. So she does, everything from requesting surveys to finding contractors. And then she's our utility manager. It's probably about half her job is just turning on and off power and water at 30 houses at a time. So
that's great. Well, relatively lean team. I mean, in terms of probably what your payroll is, considering the amount of volume you're doing on this. So.
Yeah, and the key, I think the key too is we. All of our local employees are salaried. No, Tyler's not, but he's profitability. But we sort of bring them in as a partner in terms of the profitability, which I think is important because it saves our. I gotta close this out. There we go. It saves our bottom line, right? So paying them a little bit less monthly, but offering them, quarterly bonuses based upon percentage of profit or an annual bonus, depending on the total profit, has been sort of key for keeping our salary at a reasonable level. Otherwise, it can inflate pretty quickly.
You do that with most of your people then?
All of our employees.
Okay. So what's it look like the structure of it?
Yeah. So Tyler earns a straight percentage of profitability earned. So he's my integrator. So we're partners in the business. Matt is my sales guy. So he earns probably an overly generous salary. I probably should pay him less. I stole him from another company though, so I had to pay him a bottom line that could support his family. So he's actually a friend of mine. So he's, he makes a teacher's salary, I'll say, plus a percentage of profit on a quarterly basis, and then I give him a annual bonus depending on the entire profitability of the company, which is small at first. In fact, I stole a coffee cup, so if it's less than whatever value, he gets a coffee cup. and then it goes from a few percentages to 10 or 20% of the profit, because our goal is actually to have him sort of step in as the COO and then move Tyler in as the CEO in the next 2 years.
Okay. Yeah. So aligning a lot of the profit sharing. So how do you go about then educating everybody on how you drive more profit? Because for a lot of people, they get the sales side of it, but then when it comes to all the expenses and what it truly takes and how these small changes can have like massive impacts on your profitability, both positive and negatively, it takes what we found a good amount of education on that. What have you done?
Yeah. So we have open books with our employees. So quarterly we go through and we do an open P&L to show where the expenses are, where the profit's coming from. We were in the process of spending a little bit more time on budget so that we can sort of give the department heads more flexibility and saying, okay, I'm going to invest here or cut things. So we use a lot of data, particularly in the sales. I mean, we spend tens of thousands of dollars a month on leads. So that's the easiest thing to adjust to cut back or increase capacity. So we're very conscious of like ROI. What is this going to do to our bottom line? So yeah, that's we follow the EOS platform.
Yep.
And so we spend a lot of time looking at driving profits, reducing expenses. Spend probably an hour a quarter looking at that with our department heads. Yep.
Great. Yeah. So then how's that pivoted to, I guess, the rental properties and trying to create some passive income?
Yeah. So I just went through, we're both in GoBundance. So I just went through my one sheet with a few gentlemen, and they sort of laughed at our passive cash flow because it's piddly squat compared to our net worth. And the reason is we buy a lot of value add properties. So because we flip properties, a lot of the assets we purchase, we just bought an apartment complex for $950,000. We're putting probably $50,000 to $70,000 a month into just that project. And so we're
in renovations.
And renovations and unit turns. So yeah, it's, probably $350,000, $400,000 into it in the next 12 months. So it's very challenging to come up with passive cash flow when we're dumping so much money into it because it's a value add project. But, sort of understanding equity to cash flow. And what's the goal? We spend a lot of time, Tyler invests with me. He's my flip partners, but we have a 30 some units rentals together. And so we look at, is this a value add project? When it's done, we sell most of our properties. So we see our earnings on the capital gains as opposed to the cash flow.
And why is that? Why don't you keep them?
A lot of it turns into equity basis. So let's say, I'll give you an example. We bought a 5-unit. This will freak people out. This is in Muskegon, Michigan. So we bought a 5-unit for $101,000.
Okay.
Right. So 20 grand a unit or something. And we put $35,000 or $40,000 into it while it was occupied, turned 3 units and then sold it for $190,000, something like that. So
okay.
We only owned it for 2 years. And the main reason is it's always a function of what's the value of the property to the loan. And so the problem is when you have a value add property, your equity to cash flow becomes so low after you've finished up or started fixing the property up that you have to make the decision, do I leave that low or do I redeploy my funds by selling the property or refinancing? So that's always the question we ask. In my mind, I don't yet have the net worth to not redeploy that equity. So I'd rather, maintain
So you'd rather pull the 60 grand out or whatever your 30 each gain on it and then take back, that's the gain plus the capital back and then go and find something else so you can try to make another 30 grand off the same amount of capital or just snowball it. Is that the play right at this stage?
Correct. Yeah. So at this point, my wife and I live a very frugal life, $45,000 or $50,000 a year. So we live very cheap. So we invest a lot more than we live on. But I've also realized like a $50,000 investment sitting there, there's huge potential to turn, especially in the flipping world. I can turn 50 into 80 very quickly. So redeploying funds, in my mind, is quite important. So we try to stick at about 50% debt to equity in our properties. I don't know. Yeah. So when we start straying below that, it's important that we look at, refinancing or selling a couple properties.
Okay. And then do you have a point of this thing on your future self of buying triple net apartments? Is this still part of your vision, or is it more kind of like, hey, let's take this cash and put it into buying businesses we were talking about earlier, or something else? Cause it's a struggle. I mean, I have it too, where, hey, I could go out and buy a triple net property if I wanted to, but at the end of the day, I get like a 4% cash on cash. And it's like, I could just take that money and I could do a hard money loan and make 12 or whatever, or I could go and like buy another business and make a lot more on it. So but then those all require different time commitment and risks. So you kind of, there's like a balance of it all. Yeah.
I think for us, we're always thinking about like, what is our life looking like? So at this point, if I'm to open up my sort of buckets of assets, and I don't know this exactly, I'd say a third of my money is in business in terms of like equity in our flip company. Probably half of it is in value add properties. And then the rest of it is in cash flow. So we have a very small portion of cash flow. So I've got 2 triple net properties I'm partners in, earn a 10% in a very large building, like $10 or $11 million. And then a smaller triple net in Chicago that's maybe worth $2 million. I'm a quarter partner in that one. And then we do have 2 apartment complexes, a 23 and a 24 unit. So those are, one's a value add, the other one's going to be cash flow. It's a small value add, so only $50,000 or $60,000 invested instead of $400. But so I think we're now in the process where we're moving away from small multis and really focusing on apartment acquisitions, just because we've got too much equity. I think we sort of hit a terminal point where I can't handle more than say 40 properties at a time. So we're just going to start, instead of going to 80, we're going to look at doubling the asset size as we sell.
So what do you think for people? What would be your advice on trying to make that decision of, hey, you got money to invest. How do you, I don't know, what kind of mental model do you kind of work through to decide? Is it return? Is it like, I guess it's time, better opportunity? I mean, how do you view it? Or how would you recommend someone view it?
I'd say I balance how my wife feels and how much time we have with the equity that we have available, and sort of looking at risk and diversification, right? So if we're extremely heavy in our business, it's important, I think, to diversify. Another thing I look at is if my active income is really high, I need to offset it, and I can do that by acquiring a triple net property or cost segging an apartment complex. So we look a lot at like, how do we reduce tax basis? How busy am I? I have a list on my wall of reasons I don't sleep well, which sounds funny, but like when I don't sleep well, I write it down and I try my best to avoid that. If I wake up and I'm stressed because I'm at 56% debt instead of 50, I'm like, oh, I better write that down. And so that's sort of the number we have is how do I stay at 50%? And I think right now we're at 42%. And so we've,
interesting.
Yeah,
that's dead on all the flips too, or just your rentals?
Our rental portfolio is about. I actually don't know offhand, but yeah, I think our rental portfolio is 42%. I think across the board, I'm mid 50s. So
okay, interesting.
With the flips involved.
Why 50? Why not 60? Why not 40?
I don't know. I just got like when I see there's no like main reason I did it. It's just I've been leveraged at 65% and I was uncomfortable. And so for me, I just woke up and I thought, I don't like the debt payments on this. I don't like the interest we're paying on this. And so, good, healthy debt attached to good, healthy properties is important. So, no fundamental reason other than that's where I felt safe.
There you go. Well, that's what, the idea of running a business is you can sleep well at night and you can provide a great life for your family and all that. Yeah. So it's, if you find, like you said, there's things that are bothering you, I think it's a great idea to go and identify it and then come up with a solution to solve it. Right. That's like the entire point.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a hard number. If you and I talked before this call about business acquisition, and I think that's probably where we'll go in another 18 to 24 months. And at that point, I think leveraging an active business is really important. And so I can see, having that debt leverage sort of increase to, a value beyond that. But I think right now with the current businesses we're working in, it's probably not, I'm not comfortable with it. So,
yep. Cool.
Yep.
So, hey, pivoting, I have a few, I want to hear some stories here. So on your sheet, you said you purchased a commercial airplane fuselage, a 42-foot school bus, an ambulance, imported $900,000 of classic Land Rovers, and purchased a 14 cubic yard container, I assume, of winter beanies. So I don't know if any of those are the most interesting to share, but what's up with all that?
Let's start backwards because I love this story. So, you and I are both in GoBundance, and there's a gentleman who his name's Ron, and he did a webinar on like how to.
Oh, I know Ron. Yeah.
Yeah, Ron. So Ron. So
Yep.
he's a cool dude.
Yep.
And he did this thing on beanies, and I went to the store and I bought $1,000 of beanies, and I sent him a picture, and I'm like, dude, you want these? And he was like, yeah. And he called me. And so he's using retail arbitrage and he's selling them online through Amazon to make more money. Because as a seller of this brand, we're not allowed to do it. So he's like, yeah, you acquire as many as you want, I'll pay you a fixed price above. And so I just posed this question. I said, like, what if I could buy 1,000? What if I could buy 5,000? What about
and sell it to Ron?
Yeah. And
okay.
what about 50,000? He's like, dude, I'm in. So I deployed I created a Think If It course. My wife and I spent 3 days. We gave our kids away to my to my parents, and we spent 3 days and we built a Think If It course on what stores to go to, how to find them, where to buy them, how to use our rewards points. Here's how to use our credit card. Here's how to use the tax exemption form. And then I used a program called On Fleet. I've never done anything like this in my life. It was super fun.
Okay.
And I deployed 11 drivers in 6 or 7 different states, and we bought 24,000 hats from retail people, shipped them to our house, and filled 2 U-Haul vehicles and sent them to Ron.
Okay. What'd you make on them?
So honestly, I don't remember. It varied based upon the color, but I think our total gross was like 80-some thousand. We earned,
like
and
profit?
then profit. And then it was weird too. Like it came from all sorts of different places because we made credit card points, right? So we spent like $150,000 to $200,000 a day. We only shot for like a week and a half. So we got 24,000.
So you're like driving to like Target or like Walmart or wherever he could buy these things. Was that like the specialty? You probably had a list and you knew, and then random people your credit card number, or you bought them online and they had to like go pick up in store.
Yeah, great question. So we couldn't buy online. And so we bought them. I shipped everybody, overnighted them credit cards, my own credit card with their name on it. And so like I recruited heavy for one day on like Thursday. I said, okay, you guys ready? On Tuesday, we're going to start working. So I remember spending like $60 just overnighting cars. I'm like, I am such an idiot. This is such a bad idea. And I skip traced every retailer that I knew that carried this brand, and we put them in a big list, and then we used OnFleet to design the best route. So Brian, let's say you're in Philadelphia, is that right?
Yep.
So I would put together the list of like 27 retailers that I knew would be best. You tell me where you lived. I'd give you a start time. You tell me how long you want to work. So I want to work 14 hours or 10 hours or whatever. And I would predict based upon pickup and drop off and redesign the optimal route so that you could go as fast as possible. I could see where you were. So I had 10 drivers driving all over the place.
So how much did you pay the drivers? Like an hourly fee or a fixed number per hat or something?
I gave them a fixed number per hat. Yeah. Okay. So we had, and it was weird though, because we'd burn out a location. So I literally bought every single beanie of this set of colors in Michigan. Every single one. So we went and we bought these out, and we bought every single one. So
how'd you vet the drivers to give them your credit card? You just didn't, or
I sort of trust people faster than I should. I mean, it's like, what are they going to burn me? Like, oh well.
Buy a flat screen TV, whether they're
buy a flat screen TV. Yeah. No, but I had a driver. This is funny, but one of my employees is like, oh yeah, you should talk to my wife's ex-boyfriend. And so I called him and he drove like 12 hours a day. He made 10 grand in 6 or 7 days. And, he's a construction worker.
So you made 80 grand after paying all these guys?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so, it was just like, and so your question is like pivots. That I knew wasn't going to be a permanent pivot, right? That's not a business. It's like I'm going to burn it out.
So you spent like a week on this thing total? Like how much time did you invest?
Week and a half, probably.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, it was, and it's not going to work moving forward either. So, it was a one-time thing. I'm like, this sounds fun. And so I have a big dilemma I have is how much time do I have? How much fun am I having? And how much money am I going to make? And so I balance that a lot. So another side business, I've purchased 30 some Land Rover Defenders, and I ship classic antique Land Rovers into the United States, and then I resell them. So we fix them up internationally, ship them over, and then we resell them here. And to me, I'm like, I want an excuse to buy a Land Rover. And this is a great way to buy one and have one in my garage without having to pay for it. So I bought 2, and then I bought 5, and then I bought 10.
And how do you find them?
Well, so I'll tell you the failure story first. So I vetted sort of people on Facebook Marketplace.
Okay.
So I go to Facebook and so we buy them in the UK, and I go on the UK and I search for like Land Rover Defender. And I had my VA looking for them. So we created a database of trucks. So we knew like which ones were priced well, which ones weren't. But then we checked, for rot, so we can look for.
So you get them to a shop or something, take a look at them and get a report, or how'd you?
Well, I did a lot of stuff wrong, let's just say. So, so we can look. They have, the East Coast in Philadelphia, you have it too. Like they do an annual check on your vehicle to check for rust and chassis damage and stuff. So they have that in the UK, and it's all public available. So if I have the VIN number, I can plug it in and see what damage is available. However, I didn't check for stolen vehicles. So I bought a stolen vehicle from a guy who swapped the VIN. So I bought 2 trucks from him, actually. One was stolen. The other one literally was a completely different truck than he sent pictures of. I'm like, dude, if you're going to rob me, like, why even give me the truck, But anyway, I bought a truck I didn't send me the wrong pictures of. So yeah, that one went back to the police, and I lost 10,000 pounds. So I don't know, $13,000 or $14,000. The other one I think spent 5 or 6 or 7 grand on. I sold it for 2. So it was just a piece of crap. But eventually I found, after some trial and error, I found 2 individuals that have sourced vehicles for me. So they just call me and say, hey, I got a good truck. You want it? And I pay retail. So I pay retail value in the UK, and I ship them over here. So for them, it's easy. They get a cash buyer that doesn't have to deal with it. You
don't have like dealer license issues in Michigan? Like in PA, you can only sell so many vehicles under your personal name.
Yeah, I can only sell 5 a year. So what I do is I actually import them under a dealership's name locally. So I import them. I put them under we use Grand Rapids Auto Gallery to sell the vehicles, or GR Auto Gallery.
Okay, and then they get some money on it. You get some money on it.
Yep. So we sell them on consignment through them. It's a little dangerous because they're on title, so I technically don't own them. But I mean, a giant company's not going to screw somebody over, right? It's like,
so how much are you making on a truck?
So last year we sold 14 and we made 55 grand.
Okay.
So in hindsight, it was a great time to sell the trucks. So this year though, interest rates have gone up, and classic vehicles have not increased in value. They've decreased. So I'm a little worried that I have 14 right now that are owned that have yet to be finished registered. And I've got 300 grand or $350,000 wrapped up into those. So I'm sure I'll break even, but I may not make money.
So at the end of the day, I mean, this is what I used to struggle with, and I don't struggle as much anymore, but like you chase all these things and it's like fun, but it's not like it ended up like taking time. And it's like, if you spent all that time, you bought all these Land Rovers, like, yeah, it would be fun. But if you invested into your like flip business or buying more rentals, like you probably would have made more money.
Yeah, but Brett, everything's not about making money though.
But yeah. So it's the fun aspect, right?
It's fun, yeah.
And that's like what you're going for. But I think as long as you keep that in mind, that's why you're doing it. You're doing it to have fun, not because it's a good business decision or the best, highest use of your time. And I think that's just having clarity around that is truly why you're doing it. And that's okay too. It's good to have fun.
Yeah. So like the Land Rovers last year, I loved it. It didn't take much time. It was really simple. And then this year, the states changed how the registration works. So before it was like fast, it was easy. And now it's a big pain in the butt. I don't like it anymore. So I'm
probably
done.
stop doing it, right? Yeah.
So yeah, we're done. So I think, I always think like with a side business, that's the question to ask. If it's fun, is it going to take a lot of time? And like Land Rovers takes me more time to talk about it with my friends than it does for me to actually do it. Because I have a VA that handles the shipping, the dealership sells the properties or sells the sells the trucks. So for me, it's just like I deploy some funds and I spend an hour a week on it.
That's cool. Yeah, and it's a question of, is it a one-off project or is it actually like a business? And if it's a business, it requires like recurring use of your time. It's also a little bit different too than if it's just like, hey, a one-off, hey, we're gonna buy a bunch of these hats and make 80 grand in 10 days. It's like a one-time fun project. You learn something. Hey, maybe there'll be another opportunity. You've kind of learned all the stuff. You can kind of deploy the same exact playbook again, right? If that's what you choose to do. So what's next kind of on your horizon? I mean, you do a lot of different stuff. What are you like working on now? Like what's it going to look like over the next year for you?
So this year, my focus has been on spending time with my family. So at this point, my schedule, when I wake up on time, I didn't this morning, but I try to work between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. and then 1 to 4 with the goal of getting down to 1 to 2 probably. And so during that time, I spend time with myself and I do about half research and development in terms of like future ideas, triple net acquisitions. And then the other half of my time is really focused on the flip team and training and development. So I'm sort of figuring out what I want to do and I don't really know. And so while I'm doing that, I think my main goal right now is to focus on doing less so that I can figure out what I really enjoy. And so, I talked a little bit about potentially business acquisition, rolling up franchises, just spending time, maybe we turn our flip business into a triple net acquisition company. So it'd be really easy to change asset classes. So I don't really know. I'm so just kind of figuring out, and I'm going to give myself this fall and this winter to slow down and work 25 hours a week before I make a decision. So that's sort of been my main focus this year.
Good. Yeah. One of the exercises that someone gave to me and I've tried is like you have your to-do list, but then you also make a not to-do list. Yep. And then you can kind of reconcile the two to find, what are the common things, or like, hey, like you said, you really like this part about the flip business, but you don't like this other component, maybe because they're smaller dollars or they're higher units. And now you want to do bigger deals, but less of them. Yeah. And that could lend itself to a different asset class or, whatever. But it's like, you've got all these resources in place that you enjoy. It's just, what do I want to apply it to? So I think that's good advice. It sounds like you're following. So cool. So where can listeners connect if they would like to find out more about kind of your company, what you're up to, and if they have any cool deals they want to send you for buying hats or
If you got a weird 8-day side project they can make 80 grand on, I'm interested in talking. So so we have my wife and I travel in a Toyota Tacoma with our 2 kids. So I've got a 2 and a 4-year-old and a dog. So we live in a Toyota Tacoma 2 months of the year. We're going this fall, going to Florida and Texas and doing some traveling. So you can see us. I don't run it. My wife does. Overland Investor is in our Instagram. So at Overland Investor. And then if you guys are interested in investing with us, lending money to our flipping company or becoming a partner on an investment, you can go to overlandinvestor.com.
Cool. All right. I guess you have a trailer you pull too. Do you sleep?
No. We're in a Toyota Tacoma. Yeah.
Where do you sleep?
We use we have a South African camper called an Alacab Kaya. So it's like
on top of the bed of the truck.
Yeah. It's a slide-in truck camper. It kind of looks like a contractor's truck, but the top pops up and you can sleep inside of it. So we use harvest hosts, some weird things we like to park, cemeteries. My wife gets freaked out at, but cemeteries are a great place to camp. We use VFWs, American Legions on the weekdays. Churches are great in the weekdays. So yeah, we just go, we travel. I'm a pretty thrifty guy. So we find a really nice, beautiful place to park where we're not going to get in trouble, and we live off grid. So that and BLM land when we're out west. So
cool. That sounds interesting. It's a whole nother topic to talk about sometime, but cool. I appreciate you coming on the show, sharing your story. I think it's pretty interesting and, definitely a different lifestyle, like you said, but part of it is you created this thing by removing yourself to give you that freedom to travel in the Tacoma and to, have all these fun side projects. I think it's pretty cool.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, Brian. It's a pleasure.
It was great talking to you. That's all we got for this episode with the Business with Beers podcast. One thing that would really help both us and other new potential listeners is to rate the show and leave a comment in iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you listen. Also, make sure to link up with me on your preferred social media platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can find all my links at brianbeers.com. Please just share the podcast with anyone who you think might enjoy it. And until next time, remember to take the actions others won't, to live the life that others don't.